They say love is tested in the darkest moments, but I never imagined the man I planned to spend forever with would fail my test so cruelly. I remember the day he slid the ring onto my finger like it was yesterday. His hands trembling, his eyes misty with emotion, telling me I was the best thing that ever happened to him. We were in Central Park, surrounded by cherry blossoms. People clapped. I cried. I said yes. But what I didn't know was that the same man who promised forever would turn his back on me the moment forever started to look different. My name is Tessa, and this is the story of how love nearly destroyed me, but also how pain built the strongest version of myself I never knew existed. Before I got sick, life was good. I worked as a senior graphic designer at a marketing firm in Manhattan. I was thriving. I had just turned 30, I had my own apartment, I was engaged to Jacob, the kind of man everyone thought was perfect. Polished. Ambitious. Charming. My parents adored him, my friends called us goals, and for a while I believed we were unstoppable. Jacob was a corporate attorney, tall, clean-cut, Ivy League educated. The type who always knew which fork to use at dinner parties and had a 5-year plan for everything, including our future. We had already picked a wedding venue in Vermont, started talking about buying a home in New Jersey, and he even picked out names for our future kids. Then came the headaches. First they were small. A dull pressure behind my eyes. I chalked it up to stress and deadlines. But they got worse. Blinding migraines that sent me to the ER at 3 a.m. nosebleeds. Dizzy spells. I fainted once in front of my colleagues during a presentation. That's when the test started. And when the doctor walked in that day with a folder in his hand and sadness in his eyes, I just knew. You have a rare form of brain cancer, Tessa, he said softly. But we caught it early. There's a treatment path. It won't be easy, but it's doable. My whole world cracked open. I was terrified, but I wasn't alone. Or so I thought. I called Jacob right away. I expected tears, concern, questions. Instead, there was silence on the line. Paused too long to be casual. Are you sure? He asked coldly. Like, really sure? I remember that moment so vividly because it felt like someone took the ring off my finger right then and there, even though it hadn't happened yet. He came to the hospital later that evening with flowers, but his energy was different. He sat in the chair stiff, distant. He asked questions like a man reading off a checklist, not like a man whose fiancé just got life-altering news. I told myself he was in shock, that he needed time to process. I didn't know then that he was already detaching himself from me. The days that followed were a blur of appointments, second opinions, and decisions. I shaved my head preemptively because I didn't want to watch my hair fall out in clumps. Jacob barely looked at me after that. He avoided my eyes when I took off my wig and sat on the couch beside him, vulnerable and bare. He stopped calling as often. Stopped texting back right away. His excuses piled up. Late meetings, last-minute travel, exhaustion. But the truth hit me hard one night when I found out he hadn't been staying late at the office like he said. A friend saw him having drinks with a woman downtown, laughing like he didn't have a care in the world. I confronted him the next day. He didn't deny it. She's just a friend, Tessa, he said, avoiding my gaze. I needed someone to talk to. You've been going through a lot. I've been going through a lot? I was the one fighting cancer. I was the one waking up each morning unsure if I'd even make it through the week. And he needed support? That's when I realized I was engaged to a man who loved the idea of me more than he ever loved me. But I held on. I didn't want to believe he would abandon me. Not like that. Not when I needed him the most. Then one morning, just before my second round of chemo, I woke up to a note on my kitchen counter. No words. Just the engagement ring inside the box, neatly placed beside a half-empty coffee mug. That was how he ended things. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a cold, silent decision that shattered the last piece of hope I had left. I collapsed to the floor that day. My body, already weakened by treatment, gave in. My heart, already bruised by disappointment, broke completely. But I didn't die. Not physically, not emotionally. In fact, that day was the start of something else entirely. The woman who rose from that kitchen floor wasn't the same one he left behind. She was stronger. And she was going to make damn sure he'd regret the day he gave that ring back. It's strange how silence becomes louder when you're left alone in a hospital room. The beep of machines, the soft footsteps of nurses, even the wind against the windows. Everything echoed like grief trapped in sound. After Brian left, the room felt colder. Not physically, no, the temperature stayed the same. But something inside me froze. I stared at that ring box on the tray for hours, unable to move it. It just sat there like a cruel reminder of what I'd lost. Not just a man, but the belief that I was worthy of being loved through pain. The doctors kept telling me to stay positive. My mom, God bless her, came from out of town to be with me for a week. But she had work, bills, and a younger sibling to take care of back home. I insisted she go back, told her I could manage, but the moment she stepped out of that hospital, a loneliness so raw gripped me by the throat. Brian never came back. Not even a text. His friends stopped calling too. The ones who used to laugh with me at dinner, tag me in Instagram photos, say, "You're so good for him, Clara." They vanished like smoke. I guess my sickness made them uncomfortable. Or maybe I was no longer part of the image they had in their heads of Brian's perfect life. Funny how people only want you when you're whole. I kept telling myself I had to be strong. That maybe if I healed quickly, if I got my life back on track, someone would come back. Maybe even him. But the mirror was unkind. My once full cheeks were now sunken. My thick curls were gone, replaced by a soft peach fuzz and a scarf I tried to tie with elegance. I had no eyebrows, no lashes. My eyes looked hollow. My skin was blotchy and bruised from 4 pokes. Every day I felt myself mourning the person I used to be. The woman who was once beautiful in her fiancé's eyes, now didn't even recognize herself. But you know what hurts more than physical sickness? Feeling like your worth expired the moment your body changed. I remember crying myself to sleep one night, swallowing sobs so the nurse on the night shift wouldn't hear. I pressed my fists into my mouth to muffle the sound. I had never felt so discarded. So unloved. I started asking questions that haunted me. Was I only lovable when I was healthy? Did Brian ever truly love me? Or did he love the version of me that made his life easier? Was I just another chapter in his story, a plot point he abandoned when things got too real? I began to realize something terrifying. I had wrapped my whole sense of worth around someone else's approval. I thought love was supposed to be unconditional. But now all I could see was how easily conditions were applied to mine. That realization didn't hit me all at once. Came in waves, like the nausea after a chemo session. Slow at first. Then all-consuming. But one night something changed. I was alone again. It was raining outside, the kind of soft patter that feels almost like a lullaby. I was sitting upright, a warm blanket wrapped around me, watching the droplets slide down the glass. And for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to stop thinking about Brian. Instead, I thought about me. I thought about the strength it took just to endure. The quiet resilience no one praised me for. The battles I was fighting in silence. Every blood draw, every sleepless night, every moment of panic when I felt a new pain and wondered, is the cancer spreading? No one clapped for me. No one held my hand. But I was still here. Still breathing. Still fighting. That moment broke something inside me, but in the best way. I stopped grieving the love I lost and started grieving the parts of me that had depended on that love for survival. I made a vow to myself that night. When I get out of this hospital, I will never again beg for someone to stay. If they can't love me when I'm broken, they don't deserve me when I'm whole. I didn't know then how long my healing journey would take, or that the road ahead would be harder than anything I'd ever faced. But I knew for the first time that my story wasn't ending in that hospital bed. It was beginning. I still had to face betrayal, unexpected cruelty, and one final confrontation with Brian that would shake everything. But I also didn't know then that karma never forgets. They say healing isn't linear. That some days you'll feel like a warrior and other days you'll break down over a strand of hair on your pillow. They were right. My treatment ended 3 months after Brian walked away. I rang the bell at the hospital with trembling hands and blurry eyes. Not just because I had fought cancer, but because I had survived the kind of heartbreak that could have killed my spirit faster than any diagnosis. But healing wasn't just about surviving chemo. It was about learning to walk into the sunlight without flinching. It was about learning to look at my reflection without disgust. It was about learning to live without looking for him in every crowd, every car that slowed down near my street. I moved in with a friend temporarily. Sasha, God bless her, made her tiny apartment feel like a palace. She gave me the bigger room, cooked with me, prayed over me. She reminded me that not all love disappears when life gets hard. I started therapy too. Not just to unpack the trauma of being sick, but to confront why I'd spent so many years choosing people who didn't choose me fully. My therapist once asked, "Clara, what made you believe love has to be earned through performance?" I didn't have an answer then. But I do now. Because for the first time I started remembering myself before Brian. Before the perfect Instagram photos. Before the ring. Before the illusion of forever. I remembered the girl who danced barefoot in the rain as a child. The one who used to write poetry about the stars and tape it to her bedroom ceiling. The one who had dreams bigger than being someone's fiancé. She had gotten lost somewhere. Drowned in expectations. Crushed under conditional affection. But piece by piece I started pulling her back. I joined a support group for young survivors. We laughed. We cried. We talked about scars, both visible and invisible. One woman told me, "Girl, if he left you when you got sick, imagine what would have happened if life threw something harder your way." And that stuck with me. Because Brian didn't just walk away when I was vulnerable, he walked away when he had the chance to show who he really was. His absence didn't break me anymore. It exposed him. And slowly, my anger turned to fuel. I started running in the mornings. First half a block, then a full mile. I shaved what was left of my patchy hair and let the wind hit my bare scalp. I stopped wearing scarves and started walking tall, even when people stared. I applied for a new job. Something creative, something I'd always wanted but had put off because Brian said it wasn't secure enough. I got the job. And I flourished. And then just when I thought the chapter was closed for good, life handed me a twist I didn't expect. It was a Sunday afternoon when I walked into a cafe near my new apartment. And there he was. Brian. He looked shocked, like he'd seen a ghost. Like the last time he saw me, I was still thin, pale, crying in a hospital bed. And the woman standing before him was someone he no longer recognized. I didn't smile. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something. But nothing came out. I didn't wait. I walked up to him, calm and steady, and said, "Don't worry. I'm not sick anymore. You can put the ring back where you found it." He blinked. Tried to reach for some apology. Some excuse. Hey. I didn't know how to handle. I stopped him. "You didn't know how to love someone when it was hard. That's all I needed to know." Then I walked away. No tears. No rage. No begging him to explain his cowardice. That day I felt like I'd finally taken my power back. Not by yelling, not by trying to hurt him back, but by choosing peace, and choosing me. He may have taken back the ring, but I took back myself. And that was worth more than any diamond. I thought that was the end of Brian's presence in my life. I thought that cafe moment would be the last time our paths ever crossed. I was wrong. 2 weeks after that encounter, I got a message on LinkedIn of all places. From his mother. Yes. The same woman who used to call me the good influence in Brian's life. Who once gave me a family heirloom necklace for my birthday and said, "You're already one of us." Her message was short, strange. "Clara, I hope you're well. I know what happened between you and Brian was deeply painful. But I'd like to talk if you're open. It's important." My first instinct was to delete it. But curiosity has its own way of whispering louder than common sense. So I agreed. We met at a quiet little restaurant outside the city. I went alone, heart guarded, body stronger than ever, and mind sharp enough to read through any half-hearted apology. But what she said next knocked the wind out of me. "Clara," she began gently, holding my eyes, "I didn't raise my son to be a coward. And I didn't come here to defend what he did. I came to tell you he's sick." I blinked, confused. "He's been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. 2 months ago." I didn't say anything. Not because I was heartless, but because my soul didn't know what to feel. "He didn't want me to tell you," she continued, "but he's struggling. He talks about you a lot. How he made the biggest mistake of his life. How the guilt eats him alive. He regrets everything. I looked down at my glass of water, the ice swirling in slow motion. Clara, she said, voice trembling, I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not even asking for forgiveness. But you of all people, you know what he's facing. And I thought you should know. It was the first time someone acknowledged my pain without trying to clean it up with flowers or false promises. But I walked out of that meeting with a storm in my chest. Because I didn't know what to do with this kind of news. The part of me that remembered the betrayal, the cold, unfeeling look on Brian's face the day he took back the ring, wanted to scream, karma finally found him. But the part of me that still remembered love, the late nights, the dreams we built, the laughter that once came so easily, that part of me sat quietly and cried. I told no one for days. Until one morning I opened the journal I'd started during my chemo, my private space for pain and healing, and I wrote, he left me when I needed him most. Now he needs someone. But I can't go back into a burning house just because someone else is cold. That was my answer. I didn't visit. I didn't text. But I did something even more powerful. I forgave him. Not for his sake but for mine. Because holding on to that anger, it felt like drinking poison and waiting for him to suffer. And I was done poisoning myself to prove a point. I started living louder. I dyed my hair a bold copper red. I signed up for a public storytelling event and read one of my poems on stage. About losing, healing, and reclaiming joy. After the event, a man approached me. He was in the back row, quiet, smiling. Your words hit home, he said softly. My sister's fighting breast cancer. You reminded me to stop being afraid of showing up. His name was Elijah. And something about the way he looked at me made me feel seen. Not pitied. Not admired like a trophy. But understood. We started meeting for coffee. Then dinners. Then walks in the park. And for the first time in a long time I didn't feel like someone recovering. I felt like someone becoming. Elijah didn't ask about Brian. He only cared about who I was now. He loved my scar. He called it evidence of survival. And one night months later he touched my hand gently and said, if anyone ever dares to take a ring from you again, I hope it's only because they're upgrading it to something bigger. I laughed through tears. Because for the first time I knew my story wasn't over. And the girl Brian left behind? She wasn't waiting for anyone to come back. She was walking forward, with fire in her eyes and grace in her bones. When you've been stripped of everything, your health, your love, your dignity, you're forced to choose. Stay buried in the rubble or claw your way back up. I chose the latter. With every ounce of strength left in me I started chemotherapy. It was brutal. Some days it felt like my bones were made of fire. Other days I stared at my reflection, pale, bald and weak, and barely recognized the girl in the mirror. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't trying to survive for Jason anymore. I was surviving for me. My older brother, Michael, flew in from Texas when he heard what happened. He was livid. About Jason, about Mom's betrayal, about everything I'd been keeping to myself. You were always the strong one, he told me, sitting by my hospital bed one night. But you don't always have to fight alone. He moved back temporarily to care for me. He stood by me when Mom refused to visit. He cut off anyone who dared to say, well, maybe Jason just couldn't handle it. He cooked, he cleaned, he cried with me, and most importantly, he reminded me I still had family who loved me unconditionally. That was the moment I realized, real love isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with diamond rings or wedding vows. It shows up in quiet moments, in crisis, in heartbreak, and stands beside you even when everything falls apart. As my body began to recover, so did my confidence. My hair started growing back. My smile returned, slowly but surely. And I didn't need Jason or my mother's approval, or anyone's validation to feel worthy anymore. But life wasn't done throwing curveballs. One evening, about 6 months post-treatment, Michael took me out to celebrate my final round of chemo. We were at a cozy Italian restaurant downtown, laughing over pasta when I looked up and saw Jason walk in, holding hands with Madison. Yes, Madison. The same friend who had cried with me when Jason left. The same woman who used to say, "Girl, he doesn't deserve you." Now she stood there, smiling like she'd won a prize, and I couldn't help but laugh, because she hadn't won anything real. She just caught a man who abandoned his fiancée when she needed him the most. Jason froze when he saw me. I stood up, stronger now, healthier, radiant in a fitted emerald dress that complemented my fresh curls. I walked over, calm but deliberate. "Hey Jason." "Madison." I said their names like bitter candy. He stammered. "I didn't know you'd be here." "Obviously. Otherwise you wouldn't have shown up." Madison tried to play nice. "Look, great. We've been meaning to reach out." "Don't bother," I cut her off. "I don't keep in touch with people who smile in my face while stabbing my back." Her fake smile faltered. I turned to Jason. "Thank you actually. Thank you for showing me who you really were before I made the mistake of marrying you. You saved me from years of pretending, of loving someone who couldn't love me through the worst." "You don't understand what it was like," he muttered, eyes darting around. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You didn't want to deal with sickness, with sacrifice, with real life. You wanted the Instagram version of love." His face went red. People nearby were watching now. "I hope you're happy, Jason. I really do. Does whatever you two have. It started in betrayal. And karma has a funny way of coming back around." I walked out head high. That night I posted a photo on Instagram. Just me in that green dress under the caption, "Some rings are returned. Others never fit to begin with." It went viral. What I didn't expect was the flood of messages from other women. Those who had been abandoned during illness, heartbreak, or loss. Some were fighting cancer, others struggling through divorces or postpartum depression. All of them said the same thing. "Thank you. You gave me strength." I started sharing more. My journey, my scars, my healing. And that's when everything changed. A year later I stood on the TEDx stage looking out at hundreds of faces. Some teary-eyed, some smiling, waiting for me to speak. The girl who once cried herself to sleep because a man couldn't love her through cancer now stood as a symbol of survival, self-worth, and strength. "I thought cancer would kill me," I said into the mic, "but the truth? It saved me. It burned away everything false. Every fake friend, every conditional love, every broken version of me that begged to be chosen. What was left was real." The applause that followed wasn't just for my words. It was for the woman I had become. In the months after my confrontation with Jason and Madison, something in me ignited. I started a blog, a support group. I began mentoring young women going through similar illnesses, not just physically but emotionally. And I poured myself into healing, not just from the disease but from the emotional damage too. Meanwhile, karma began to whisper. It started small, messages from mutual acquaintances. "Did you hear? Jason got laid off. Apparently Madison was caught cheating. They broke up. It got messy." I didn't react. I didn't rejoice. Because by then I had truly moved on. I wasn't the girl waiting for karma to fix what people had broken in me. I had fixed it myself. But life has a funny way of giving closure you never ask for. One afternoon, after a conference where I'd been invited to speak as a cancer survivor and mental health advocate, I walked into the lobby and there he was. He looked tired. Older than I remembered. Like the world had finally caught up to him. He approached me slowly, holding his hands together like someone who'd come to confess. "Hi," he said, voice shaky. "I've been following your journey. What you're doing, it's amazing." I smiled politely. "Thank you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I was scared. Selfish. I didn't know how to handle watching you suffer, and instead of being strong, I ran. I regret it every day. For a brief second I saw the man I once loved. Or thought I loved. But I didn't feel anger anymore. Or longing. Or even pain. Just peace. I forgive you, Jason," I said. "But I've built a life that no longer includes people who abandon me in the fire." He nodded, eyes moist as I walked away. That was the last time I saw him. Now I travel. I write. I love. Yes, love, deeply and freely, but this time with someone who stood by his sister through cancer, who watched me speak one night at a fundraiser and said, "You're the strongest woman I've ever seen." He didn't fall in love with my body or my hair or the version of me that's easy to love. He fell for the fighter. For the one who rose after being discarded. And as I sit here now, writing my memoir titled Returned Rings and Rising Queens, I know one thing for certain. Sometimes when the world walks out on you, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He took back the ring, but I took back my power. And I gave it to every woman who ever felt unworthy because someone else couldn't handle her storm. Because the truth is, you don't need a ring to prove you're loved. You just need the courage to love yourself when no one else does. If you've ever been made to feel like your illness, your struggle, or your scars made you less deserving of love, let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. Drop a comment if you're choosing yourself today. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs strength to walk away from what no longer serves them.